Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of AgogeTV. I'm your host Phil Leonard.
I'm your host Josh Summersgill.
On today's episode we have, I know I can't say that, no, I was going to say something bad then.
Say it.
I really can't. I'll probably have to cut this out. Anyway, on today's episode, we've got Daz, and Daz has been one of our longest standing members. And although people probably don't get to see as much of him as we would like, he posts some impressive CrossFit scores as well as some brilliant strength numbers, which we'll go into later. He's also a mental health nurse, so I'm sure he'll have some really interesting things to talk about, especially with everything that's going on at the minute. So I'm going to kick it over to Daz to tell me a little bit more about how he found CrossFit and his story behind where his training was before that, and then how he got to us. So go for it, Desmundo.
So my training started when I was a kid, obviously watching Rocky. And just want to be that guy, doing press ups and sit ups. So I got into weight training about age 16 from, playing rugby, and then started going to our local leisure centre in Widnes. Then, because of the certain weight they had, I needed to go to a different gym. So I went to a gym which had barbells and stuff like that. And then I got into bodybuilding type of training for a few years. And then I used to, the typical bulk, and my bulk was just eating a load of crap food and a lot of weight gainers and put a lot of weight on.
And then yeah, buddy.
Yeah. So
I've been a quarantine goal.
Yeah.
I'm not sulking.
So I used to have like two set of like clothing. So one would be really, big waistlines, and some would be, slimmer, yeah. And then I used to obviously cut in the summer, use loads of cardio, and I didn't have a clue. And then what happened was one year, 2013, I think it was, I was looking at supplements. And at this time, I didn't have a good impression about CrossFit because I saw people online were, at this time in 2013, where it was about poor coaching and poor form. So I didn't have a good opinion of CrossFit, but then I was looking at supplements for BSN, and a Rich Froning came up, and I thought, who's this guy? Chest, pecs, fucking abs. And I thought, I want to be that guy. So instead of doing my cardio for 30 minutes, I used to do some Metcons, and I didn't have a clue about programs. So I used to do like 2-3 Metcons because I thought 3 5-minute Metcons would be like a 15-minute cardio piece. So I used to do it that way. So I can remember used to like clean with a powerlifting bar, and I didn't have.
Did you do your pull-ups on a lat pull down machine for a bit as well?
Yeah, so I've done some weird Metcons. So like DT at the time, I didn't know it was called DT. So I saw a clip of Ben Smith doing it on his drive with barefoot, and I used to call that a DT, a Ben Smith workout. But then obviously when I got into CrossFit, I knew it was a DT. I've done Murph in the local gym also, lat pull downs. Done Diane with shoulder press. I didn't have a clue.
I love that. I think that's
did not have a clue.
To be honest,
I remember like when I said to you the other day, Josh, I did 333 whilst in the gym, because that was around 2014 when I got into, get more into the CrossFit, and they had 333 there, and the rope what I had was the thick plastic rope. I'm trying to do double unders with thick plastic rope. Was
gummy ropes.
Yeah. And it was Reebok, so I thought, yeah,
that'll work.
Yeah. And then I was speaking to some guys who said, if you want to get to CrossFit, you need, proper coaching and proper program. And then went to the local CrossFit gym, and then obviously met young Philly coaching. And then I just had a good sense of what, LST was doing. And you spoke to me about plans of how you're going to develop LST. And I thought, yeah, that was the way forward. So after a few emails and texts and stuff, I joined LST in, was it 2016 or something like that?
Yeah, it'd be the first year,
it was literally a few months after. And I can remember, like, I told you, Josh, the other day about, on your Instagram page, where how it's developed is quite nice to see, where you know, you did one of the opens, was it 2016 Open, and you had a few mats, and yeah, it's just sick how to see it develop.
You were there, wasn't you? Because
Yeah.
You come down for 20.5 while you, Tom Kelly, and James come down on it. And
yeah.
We didn't have the doors open or anything, and me and Josh like down tools for like 20 minutes to do 20.5 to do the thrusters and burpees workout.
And like Josh was wearing those Nike flipper shoes, and yeah, it was just so cool. Like
back in the day.
But that's the thing about CrossFit, how like even fashions develop. Because I used to wear like ball shorts because again I want to be like throwing in, you know. And
I always think like what you say there, like how you started CrossFit in like a normal gym and was just sort of like making it work. That is like, that is CrossFit. That is early CrossFit. Like making it work with the tools you've got. And it's what I think is actually quite cool about this situation we're in now, that people are being forced to, they've not got the perfect CrossFit setups.
Yeah.
So like you've got one person doing a workout with a dumbbell, you got another person doing a workout with a kettlebell, another person doing the workout with just a plate, and they're all doing the same workout. And you're like, that's like, that is CrossFit. You're just modifying appropriately. And I think that's quite cool that you come.
But that's really good about when I first started, about when I was like training me in my bedroom, about, you know, using your imagination and what you can use to train, you know, like handstand push on a wall and, you know, more body weight. It feels like I've done a full circle with this lockdown, so that's quite a nice feeling.
Defo.
Yeah,
I like it. So you found us, you've been training with us for quite a while since then. I know recently it's something that you've been wanting to do for a while. You built up to getting a 200 kilogram back squat. Obviously, now we all know that's a big number. It's not something that anybody can do. But you changed your training specifically to try and get into to try and be able to do that. Something everyone is able to do. But how did you attack that? What was your plans for making that happen?
So we did rep it out, didn't we, in October? And I felt like my body just needed like a reset, like just to, you know, get. So you get to a certain age where you're getting some you know, aches and pains, don't you? And I thought, like, my deepest phase to, like, when I die or when I'm on my deathbed, like, reflect on my life and thought, you know what, I've had a fair crack. So I always thought it's quite neat to back squat 200 kg. So essentially I just, you know, YouTube, you know, videos how, you know, like looking at technique, and because I just thought it was a up down and up motion, but obviously you guys have taught me, you know, how to, you know, use your back more and get that tight, and like Stuart was saying about, you know, bracing and stuff like that, and, you know, using a good posture. Then I looked at just programming, so I wanted to keep with me CrossFit, but more like a lower base CrossFit, so just, you know, little metcons and more typical cardio pieces. So I followed a program, Russian squat cycle for 6 weeks. Really enjoyed it, but with Russian squat cycle, it helps you to do a bit of cardio and a bit of, you know, accessory movement. And then I tested me back squat, and it went to 176, feeling awful, to like a 190, and it felt reasonably okay. And I thought, you know what, let's go for the 200. And I thought it was a mile away, but when I did the Russian, it was getting, you know, it was teasing me a little bit, it was flirting with me. So I did, I had a week off obviously, and then I did smaller for 3 weeks, and then tested it, and then thankfully back squat. But it was just, you know, on your podcast you were talking about videoing yourself and looking at different angles and working your technique and just doing rep after rep after rep, and that's what I did, just volume but not overtraining.
Like, I think one thing as well is, like, obviously you had a big base for building up to that squat as well. Like, it wasn't like, I don't want people to listen to this and think Daz did a Russian cycle and then all of a sudden he back squatted 200k. Like,
no.
You were already a decent level squat, like had a decent squat base, and you'd already.
Yeah. So before that, I was following a program where squatting once a week was in there. So I didn't go from like a 110 to 200 in 10 weeks, and, you know, gold, and
you
that's what makes it rewarding.
Ruining my dreams. That's what I was going to do next week.
I think for you as well, Dad, when you followed that cycle, it was, you didn't just get stronger at squatting, you got better at squatting. You already had like a good foundation, like Phil just mentioned, but because you're squatting 3 times a week effectively, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting stronger, yes, but you're also getting better at squatting. Do you know what I mean? Again, getting better at something alone will help you obviously move more weight anyway.
So it was the first time, pretty much ever that I video myself and watching, how did that feel, and sort of reflecting on each set and each rep, and obviously using you guys to say, look at this, look at that, and you're giving me some pointers, and you don't realize how hard a back squat is. Like, it's so technical. I didn't believe how technical it was. I just thought weight in your back, boom, but nah, it's so hard.
Up you come, or down you go, as in the case.
Yeah.
Just down. That's it. There's no coming back up. No, that's pretty sick. Like I say, and I think some good points there that obviously you built up to it a little while, and I think one difference I saw was you were starting. Like, I remember when you went from like 175 to 190. Obviously, there was a moment of, like, I remember you coming in with the video and being like, "Look at my back squat," and you could see that you were like, "I've got that. I'm having 200." Like, you actually went from, "I'd like to squat 200" to "I'm squatting 200."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that change happened with just like you say, repetitions and a bit of belief that you could, that it was coming.
Like Morpheus, wasn't it? It's like, it's beginning to believe.
Yeah, it was. It was like, time to believe. And then you threw up all the tin. So that's pretty sick. So another thing that obviously we mentioned at the start that is quite a big part of your life is you are a mental health nurse, which I know we have some interesting chats about when you're in the gym. So just tell me a bit more about what that entails and how you got into that.
So how I got into that was, been to uni before, doing typical sport, want to be a PE teacher, live my life golden, but then obviously the recession hit and other things, and I just wanted a pause in my life, so I worked at Western Hospital for 2 years, and then when you sort of reflect on your life, like where's my life going, and I thought I need to go back to uni, and I've always had a curving side of me, in my nature anyway. But at this time, I was reading Andrew Johns' book, and it's talking about bipolar and stuff like that. So I thought that was quite interesting. And at that time, mental health was getting more popular in the media and stuff. So I didn't want to be a general nurse. Didn't want to have that feeling of that's the problem, fix it. I wanted to explore how to help someone. And it sort of hits home about how powerful a good mental health is.
Yeah.
So went to uni for 3 years. And fortunately for me, I was bursary funded, but now they've sort of stopped bursary funding. So I was thankful for the NHS paid for my fees and stuff. And I think quite a lot of nurses are saying in the media now that they want to give something back to the NHS, because without the NHS, I want to be doing a job which I love. So it's nice to give something back, especially that this time of in society. So been there for 3 years, qualified, then did 2 years at a low secure hospital, then a year in criminal justice, which is working in courts custodies. But I didn't feel like I was helping people. It was more like signposting, assessing signposting. So then I went to work with people with personality disorder. I do a form of therapy. Well, I'm training two sorts of therapy, but mainly one sort. So my job is to assess people if they've got personality disorder and help them. So I do pre-treatment phase, then 12 months of therapy, and then like a post-discharge. So instead of saying, "See you later, you've had your therapy," we keep them held, and we just work on, like what Pillen said in his podcast about problem solving and this mindset. I said to you before we started about using a different way of work, and so I use a a wise mind approach.
I like it. So a couple of things just to go over there is like,
yeah.
The first thing is obviously a lot of people. I know me and you know who Andrew Johns is, but I know Josh is probably going.
Yeah.
Andrew Johns was basically he was the best rugby player in the world for a very, very long time. One thing a lot of people didn't know about him when he was playing was he struggled massively with bipolar.
Yeah.
And again, like I think it's interesting that knowing about Andrew Johns, reading his book, as I've read his book as well, I can see how that would have prompted you to want to know more about it and want to help people.
Yeah.
So,
and he did a YouTube clip, didn't he, with an interview saying, like, you know, so that's what struck in my mind, that how can someone be, you know, one of the best players ever to have, you know, mental health, you know, and bipolar, and 1 minute, you know, he's feeling good about himself, the next minute he's rock bottom after a game, and it's quite fascinating to see that, you know, and that's what we can't take for granted.
As well as, like, so we, like, I mean, myself and Phil and probably most of the general public have very minimal exposure to what you see on a daily basis. And I think, like,
yeah,
without going too dark and deep, mental health, unless like you've got mental health issues, you just don't even think about it, do you? Do you know what I mean? Like, you take for granted that you're normal, in inverted commas. Do you know what I mean? You take, you know, and like some of the stuff like that I hear, you just can't even comprehend it. Do you know what I mean? Because you've not got, like, you know, well, I bet for yourself when you go into work and obviously deal with what you got to deal with, it's like it's quite eye opening.
Yeah. Just again, just to explain that for me, from mine and Josh's point of view, when Daz comes in the gym and tells us about his day at work, we're both like gobsmacked and horrified at what he has to deal with, and it's just another day at the office for Daz. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, it happens all the time. And again, without going too dark into it or like jump, but like Daz, like, and I think people probably don't realize how severe it can be for a lot of people. That's definitely something I've learned from talking to you. I like the fact as well that you say, like, you use the same strategies that we've talked about on other podcasts. You just have, like, you just basically you're trained and you know what they mean.
You know what
I mean? Like, whereas we talk about having like a healthy mindset and stuff like that. You use the term wise mind. What does that mean? What was, like, how would you find that?
So wise mind is from a form of therapy called DBT. So wise mind is basically, in theory, you got three minds. So you got the emotional mind, the rational or reasonable mind, and then in the middle of that circle, you can Google this, it's called wise mind. So wise mind is basically using some of your emotions and using some of your, you know, logical thinking. So when you're really emotional, it makes it really hard to, you know, problem solve your difficulties. So when I speak to, you know, the people who I care for, I always say use some distraction techniques first to get yourself back into wise mind first, because it's really hard to problem solve or work out where your life is going in a really emotional mind. And, like, you know, your previous podcast is talking about, you know, you have that moment of, you know, that intense emotion, but when you're back into thinking a bit more logically, it makes things a bit more easier. So it's all about that, and sort of gaining insight of when you are becoming emotional, because I've done it myself where, you know, I get really emotional and getting too overwhelmed, and then I press the, you know, the F it button, and, you know, I want to drink alcohol or you know, escape or avoid the actual problem. So it's about gaining insight. So if I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, I sort of learned myself to identify that earlier, because it's easy to get from you know, it's early emotion instead of intense emotion. And I'll make myself a coffee or just chill out for 5 minutes, watch, you know, a bit on YouTube and get myself back to Wiseman, and then think about it a bit more logically, so we get into the logical. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the basic.
I like how you like, I know I've definitely been there where you say, like, you hit the fuck it button and you're just like, nah, I'm not. I'm not, like, I think I've been there like at least 6 times during this whole coronavirus thing where at some point I've gone, you know what, fuck it,
daily
anymore.
Your button send to me on WhatsApp with a big and
And then, so and that's it. Like I'm fortunate to have people like Josh and Emma who I can like be like, this is in there, and then I go, and then I think about it logically.
Yeah,
and it helps me. You know what I mean?
So from that, there's two ways to get back to wise mind. It's about doing it yourself, learning distraction techniques or coping strategies, but also what we're hearing a lot in the media and what you just said there, using other people to connect, and they can reduce your arousal levels per se to get back into wise mind.
Is wise mind like a is wise mind like a state of mind? Would you say?
Yeah.
That's like your ground zero. That's like your level.
So essentially, wise mind is using some of your emotions, because we can't neglect your emotions. You can't, and then you've got your rational mind to sort of get it in the middle, because sometimes people get really rational or reasonable mind, and then they neglect the emotions, and then builds up, and then you're like a pressure cooker, and then it explodes, and that's where you have breakdowns and getting crisis essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there's that type of, and it makes you think about thinking easier when you're in wise mind. So that's a different type of therapy. But when you're in wise mind,
out of interest, and I don't know if you can do this or is there anything like that. So obviously you like evaluate people and do like blah 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 and stuff.
Yeah.
Anything that for a laugh you could do on me and Phil right now that'd be quite interesting. Now, I don't know if there is or not.
No. So part of my assessments and stuff, everyone in this world has schemas. So schemas is based on, have you heard about schemas?
No.
So it's basically about your core beliefs about, so basically everyone's been brought up in a certain way with your mum and dad or whatever. And you build up core beliefs, or what we call schemas.
Yeah.
So from those schemas, we see the way we see ourselves, the way you see others, and how you see the world in general. And unfortunately for me, I've been brought up okay. So I see the world as a safe place. I see others quite trusting and loyal, and I see myself as, reasonably okay. But obviously for certain people who've had, difficult upbringings or life, their schemas are skewed with. So then part of that is you learn ways how to cope with that.
Right.
Because in nature, we've got to keep ourselves safe, don't we? Emotionally and physically. And that fight, flight, or freeze response, they develop that. So I would do things, and I know I do certain things to protect my own emotional state, but it might not always be the best way to manage that.
Yeah, because it just kind of explains why we don't all see the world the same way, do we?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're brought up to believe certain things, that's why you believe certain things, isn't it?
Yeah.
So from one thing, like the research that I've done and the thing, and maybe Daz can elaborate on this sort of thing a little bit more, is like when you look into like it's the kind of the whole know your why and who you are, and like evaluating your strengths and weaknesses. Do you know what I mean? And the more you start to recognize these things in yourself, the easier it is for you to sort of deal with them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, and again, like I think Daz just calls them different things to we do because we're in different industries. But like we talk about knowing your why and showing up to the gym, and like Daz might call that something else. I think, you know what I mean? Like it's and
so
like,
so like one of your, like Pillin mentioned it in the previous podcast about he learns different ways how to cope with certain things, and like certain times it's age, because the way you've done a problem when you was 19 until 28, 29, 30, you do it differently because your schemas, you've learned different ways how to cope with that schema. So when that schema gets triggered, you've learned different ways how to cope with that. So when a problem does come up now, you can deal with it different, and that's because about like you sort of reflect on what you've done in the past. And okay, we've been here before, we've done this, it's okay, we can sit down and problem solve it. But when you're 19, like I used to phone my mum up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like everyone's.
But it's just
You can look back and like I say, I think a lot of the people we talk to, and a lot of the times we end up on having these conversations is because a lot of people use training as that stress reliever, as that hours a day, you know what I mean? Like, go and focus on you. And I think that's why we keep ending up talking about it, because it is so important for people to like have that escape as such, that moment where like I say, they've not got to worry about everybody else and all the different
But
things.
so that's the other issue that, you know, in the other form of therapy, what I do is, you know, you think about a spectrum. Quite a lot of people think about others a lot more and not self, or people think about self and not others. And when you think about others a lot more, you neglect yourself and your own well-being, and that's where all the mental health. So when you're saying about going to the gym for an hour, it's about, you know, self-care, and that's again so important to get that balance of being, you know, think about yourself or thinking about others also.
Yeah, definitely. I can't count on I can't count the amount of parents that I've tried to, and obviously the natural thing is to look after your kids, and then you have to like have that conversation with them of to look after your kids, you also have to look after yourself sometimes. You know what I mean? Like it's a really common thing that, and again, we always seem to bring it up when we talk to people with kids and stuff like that, but like the amount of people you speak to who like their sole focus is on looking after the kids, the mum and dad, the, you know, like the rest of the people around them, and then all of a sudden before they know it, they're like 4 stone overweight and haven't been to the gym in 6 years. You know what I mean? Like
But the best analogy for that is when you fly, when the guys doing the safety measures and stuff, he always says put your safety mask on first and then your child. And that's same with, you know, your own well-being. You've got to look after yourself to be able to look after others.
It's the whole like sharpening the saw thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? If you're the saw, it's blunt, you fucking work's gonna take ages.
Yeah, I like that one.
Sharpen that shit.
Yeah.
Like,
you're right.
How do you, if you, so again, like, I know you can't give any specific examples because of like it's your job, but if you're dealing with people, like say, it's helpful for me to know if you're dealing with somebody who constantly just jokes people out. If you're dealing with people who, like you say, are just constantly focused on looking after everybody else, and you've got to try and get them to take that moment and start a step back to look after themselves. Where would you start with somebody to get them to do that?
So there's different like clinical stance. So my clinical stance, and you've got to stand with that clinical stance because you've got to be consistent with your care. It's about being curious about what's going on and letting them problem solve their own problem. Because if I tell them what to do all the time, what did he learn? And that can create a lot of side effects potentially. Because then in future they might say, I can't cope, I'll phone Darren. But if you're enable them to problem solve themselves. So I always think about an iceberg. So tip of the iceberg, we see someone in crisis or struggling with home life. We need to explore underneath that iceberg. So I'll ask them, you know, questions about, you know, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, when did it start, and try to explore it with them and trying to work together.
Might make a good coach. Yeah, does, might you? You know what I mean?
A cracking coach.
Might be all right, this stuff. Awesome. So I think, like I say, I think people will find that really helpful, and I find it helpful to know that like you deal with problems the same way as we deal with problems. Your problems are just bigger. You know what I mean?
So like when Pillin said about problem solving, the way we problem solve is to define the problem, and that's so hard to what is the problem. So if I'm in debt, is the problem debt or I spend too much money? And you sort of define what the problem actually is first, and then you generate all the solutions. So putting all the solutions what you want on that, and trying to pros and cons of each solution, then pick the best one.
It's just it's suppose it's like you just said there, is how far back do you want to track that? So you just said, is the problem debt, or is the problem that you spend too much money, or the problem that you, I don't know, aren't satisfied with what you've got, so you want to spend more money? Is a problem that you're not satisfied? Do you know what I mean? You can go all the way back.
So from that is quite a lot of people will spend a lot of money because they make them feel them better and with themselves, but it's short term, and then the side effect is, you know, the side effect is looking on the, you know, your bank account and you know, you think, oh God. But what happens is, you know, reflecting back to your schemas is, I don't feel good about myself. I've bought something in the past that's made me feel better, and it's worked.
Yeah, okay.
And then what did you learn in the future? To make me feel better, I need to buy something. But actually, so what the problem is it spending money, or is it I'm feeling crap about myself, or whatever the problem is?
Yeah. So, like, I know it sounds like I might be using completely the wrong analogy here, but when Finn chases bikes, Finn's my dog for anybody that doesn't know. When Finn chases bikes, right, I know he thinks he's doing the right thing because he comes back, but he goes running after this bike barking, and then he comes back to me dead happy because he's like, oh yeah, look, I did my job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a bad thing for him to do. Somebody's going to boot him one day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he thinks that his belief is this is what is going to make it better.
But if he'd have accidentally been booted the first time, so chasing the bike equals a kick in the head. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So he'd have a completely different, like, a completely different perspective on it. But because obviously all he's ever seen is that's fun, like, and it's the same for people. Obviously, if all you've ever, it's like it's why people eat cake. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the instant gratification of doing something, but long term, that's probably not for the best. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, release. I mean, it's like, oh, this feels good. This.
Yeah, it's the little ding of your phone going off and you being like, oh, people want me, yay! You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Yeah, until you build up that many social media connections and stupid things that you don't want, and you're like, why have I got 5 million notifications? Like, which we definitely do all the time.
Yeah, but that's what's going to happen to lockdown. That people are going to be bored.
Yeah,
you've got to fill that boredom with spending money, and then you get that excitement, you know, tracking your delivery or whatever, and then when you get it, it's like, and then but you're still bored, so then you spend money. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good analogy. I like it. Right, so I think that, like, moving on to our fun free questions before we get going.
I love these. These are great.
You know what? I've closed it down. I've closed it down by accident. Give me 1 second.
Okay, right. Well, what I want you off you, Daz, I want you to give Phil and myself and the viewers 3 book recommendations. So we normally only say either a book or a film, but I know you're a big reader.
Right.
So 3 books. Can be about absolutely anything. That if someone was to say, right, Daz, I'm gonna read 3 books and that's it in my entire life, what 3 books am I gonna read?
Yeah, so I think you might guess the first one, Extreme Ownership. I think that's.
Yeah, buddy.
I just think that sort of changed my life a little bit. That, you know, before I read that book, I used to, you know, blame other people. That, yeah, there you go.
Buy it.
There you go.
Get that dopamine release.
Gosh,
yeah.
We should be on commission for selling that book now.
Me and Josh bros.
Yeah.
One day, maybe.
One day.
But that's a really good book about, you know, I had to blame other people for my own faults, and it sort of made me feel okay about myself when I've, you know, messed things up in my life, and that's because of that book of, you know, just be content with yourself, and that's what it is. The second book is a book called Chimp Paradox. So it's Steve Peters. You've heard of him?
Yeah.
So if people don't know, it's a guy who does therapy for Ronnie O'Sullivan, Tyson Fury, and Liverpool. And Chimp Paradox is a really basic theory, but it sort of helped me out about, you know, what's important to me and what people are important to me, because I used to listen to, you know, people who weren't really, you know, important in my life, and that used to affect me. But with Chimp Paradox, it's about, you know, I care about what you used to think about me, and, you know, and stuff like that, but other people in my life who are not that important, then so what? And it's about managing your chimp. So that's a pretty cool book.
I remember when I read that book, like, it was, I personally, I didn't enjoy it, but I like straight down the line information, and there was like, it was very up in the air, and like I've actually recommended that book to people since then, because I know that they would find it more useful than me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if somebody's, I think I read the book at like the wrong time. If I'd have read it as like the first book I'd have read about learning how to manage your thoughts properly, then I might have gone, oh, this is brilliant. But I sort of read it like a little bit down the line and went, yeah, I prefer this other stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
But no, it is like, I think if you like, it could sort of lost me when it started talking about moons, and it's like managing your moons as well as your chimp and stuff. But I'm like,
yeah.
Like I say, I've got a few people to read it since then, and I know most people find it really beneficial.
Yeah, but that's what happens with you know, going back to therapy. That some certain therapies, certain books ain't gonna help, you know, certain people. It's just how you relate to that book. And then the third book, I think Andrew Johns, I think that was because he's got some good stories in it also. It's not all about, you know, mental health, but so some of the stories, you know, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, you know what, like it was for years one of my favourite books. That just like growing up in a rugby town and all the rest of it. It's like I know Josh was always an airy-fairy footballer when he was a kid, so but it doesn't quite. I feel like I've given footballers a load of shit on the last few podcasts.
Like, I've just in school it'd be, you hold this ball, run away from that guy who's twice the size of you. Okay, and that's my memory of rugby. That's it.
Yeah.
I was too fat to run away from anybody, so
you were the first chasing me, weren't you?
Yeah.
Were you all there? I thought you was thought you was a sneak. Yeah, so great books actually. I like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Obviously, you found a profession that you really love.
Yeah.
Being mental health nurse. But if you could have a crack at another profession, or you could choose any profession, what would it be?
Not CrossFit.
Huh?
Not CrossFit.
Ah, fuck. Tough that.
It is. It's good.
It's tough.
You won as well. I thought I'd slide that.
No, yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. Fuck. So what mental health's quite easy for me. Asking what other profession it's.
So like, I was thinking about this one, and I was like, what would I do if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now? And I think it's hard when you love what you do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I could feel my brain frazzling. Like,
if you'd have asked me that when I was sat in an office hating my life, I think I'd been like, I'd do this. You know what I mean? I'd be a bin man because why not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's better than what I'm doing now, but like, not that there's anything wrong with being a bin man. Okay.
I'd probably say something like a pilot or an astronaut. Do you know what I mean?
What?
Like, yeah. Well, because if it's related to, if it's even close to what you do now, then there's no reason you can't go out and get it and do it. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Well, it depends how you think, I suppose.
I think I don't know, maybe like electrician or something which is quite handy, so I can do stuff around my house, or you know what I mean, like something a bit more practical, so I can use it and not pay someone else to do it.
That's very practical. That does. I was thinking something like SAS for me, like, you know,
yeah.
I want to go and shoot people.
Yeah.
Daz is gonna fix the house. Josh is flying to the moon. I think that pretty much sums us all up, doesn't it?
I agree.
Yeah. Josh is living on the moon, and Daz is being dead sensible at home.
That's me.
One of my favourite stories about Daz, to be fair, was when he come in one day and was like, "Hey, I had a dream last night that I cleaned 130," and I was like,
"Oh yeah."
I'm like, "Why are you only dreaming that you cleaned 130?" I'm like, "It's a dream. Go wild, bro." Like,
but that's the thing about back in CrossFit. Like, my numbers are pretty okay now. I'm really happy. But back then, like 100K clean was like, you know, you was the man when you know. It's nice to think about.
Have you seen Inception?
Yeah.
When Tom Hardy says to him, "What's he say? Don't be afraid to dream a little bit bigger, darling." And he just pulls out this massive like grenade launcher or something. It's like that, isn't it?
One of your questions should be like, if you're in Inception, what would your object be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would keep you grounded?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, but I don't know. I still, not to ruin that film for anyone, but I still don't know what happened at the end. Like, did that stop?
Just on loop.
Right. Okay, like it. So Daz, you would be an electrician. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to go for 2 more questions for you. So the next one is, in a film about your life, who would play you?
Right. I've heard this one before. In my mind, I thought Tom Hardy,
Right.
but in reality, I think it's Danny DeVito, mate. I just think like did I say about me heart? About I went to get an MRI and this girl, it was a horror story anyway.
Oh, this is a bad story. This is a bad story.
Cut a long story short, this girl's giving me some grief and stuff.
Go for it. No, I want to hear the
full story. You want
Yeah,
the full story, right?
Go on,
so
we've got 10 minutes.
So I'm getting some heart, investigations. Gone to Liverpool Heart and Chest. Name and shame, don't give a shit. And then this girl comes in, put this gown on, blah blah blah. So I've sat down like this, and you need a Venflo, to put some stuff into your body to, I don't know, for your MRI scan. So I've got obviously a full sleeve on this right arm. So the girl's kicking off saying, oh, young lads nowadays, tattoos and all. I said, it's fine. Just use the other arms. No, they like using this right arm. So I was like, all right, sound. And thankfully I've got good veins anyway, but there's a yellow bin, a sharps bin over this way. So the girls put the Venflon in, and when you put a Venflon in, you pull out and there's a needle. So she effing lobs it, ricochets and comes from hits the rim and goes onto the floor. So I'm like, well, that's really good, infection control and, a needle injury. And she said to me, I knew that wouldn't go in, and she was telling me about certain things and stuff. And I got really, when you get uncomfortable and you're thinking like, just get in, get out. So going to the room, and I'm lying there like that, and they put this cage over me, and I'm, I just want to, when you just like thinking, I just want to get out the way. So this young, like, this little scouse girl, she's in her 50s, saying, you remind me of, and I thought, she's got to redeem herself here. And no word of lie, her words were, the guy who did the 9/11 bombings. And I was like, what? Because in my mind, I thought she was going to say Tom Hardy or, with the shitty beard, what I've got. But she said that the guy who did the 9/11 didn't even say, Bin Laden. It was the. So
she wasn't even courteous enough to give you the proper name.
Yeah.
I can't be saying that to people.
I know, and this is like a health professional, and I was very close, to saying I do work in, NHS. Just be careful what you're saying and stuff. But yeah, but I've heard that question before, and yeah, I thought maybe Dan.
You know what? I think you'd make a good I think Jack Sparrow is that beard and the
Jack Sparrow,
yeah.
I was gonna say Jack Black then.
No, yeah, Jack Black. By the time we come out of quarantine, that's what he's gonna look like, Jack.
Yeah, fuck me, man, yeah, lumpy.
Right, awesome. Okay, one last one. So, if you could tell yourself something you've learned since you've started CrossFit, if you could tell yourself it when you started CrossFit, what would you say? So, like a letter to yourself from when you were, lat pull downs and strip press for pull-ups, push-ups.
That's a good question, that, because I think I could think of a lot, really. To be honest with you, trying to pick the right one. I think. Fuck me. That's so tough. That I think take your time, because people want that goal right this minute, rather than enjoying the process. You've got to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Because that's what I enjoyed about me back squat, about the actual process. It meant something because I worked really hard for it. And
every training session, you'd come up to me and say like, "I'm just loving training at the minute."
Yeah.
And, you was only squatting. You were just squatting, and that was it. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, you're doing your accessories and stuff, but it's not like, you know, when you see a program, it's like, oh, look how fancy this is. There's like 17 different parts to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were just back squatting and loving it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I think the pros are, I think to enjoy it also, because I think, you know, people, you know, it's nice to back squat and stuff, but, you know, it's about enjoying being in the actual gym, you know, like the actual process of actually, you know, being part of a community. I know it sounds a bit corny, but people want goals and people want numbers, but like for me, and I get a bit emotional saying this, but it's about the people you've met. You know, I've met a lot of good people within CrossFit, and you know, I've gained some good experience. You know, doing some minor comps and you know, some parties, and you know, we've had some, you know, good times, and it's about enjoying actual, you know, training.
So something we say like a lot is that when someone new walks into the gym, for the first time, we don't know who they are. That person could be your next best friend.
Yeah.
And it's mad as hell, because I can remember meeting like obviously most of the people now that like obviously we're all really close to.
Yeah.
The time when we first met them, they walked to the gym doors and you just had no idea who that person was.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy.
Because that's the thing, like, you know, when I say, you know, start this podcast about, you know, you reflect on your life, and you know, it's nice to get big numbers, and you know, it's good to, you know, for that grind and that process, but it's about the experience also, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah,
definitely. But I think just to be patient with the process.
Yeah.
Love
I
it.
think, yeah.
I think being patient with the process is a good message to finish on for sure. So obviously, if anybody does want to, because Daz is an enigma really. He's not really on social media, and if you can't find him, then yeah. So if anybody wants to know a bit more about Daz, do they just have to show up at the gym at the right time of the day, or
drop us a text or just speak to me. But I'm more than happy to you know.
Cool. So basically, to get hold of Daz, you have to come and find me or Josh, and we'll Daz for you.
Like the Batman sign, isn't it? You know, we've got like a light on top of the gym. We just shine it, and a barbell comes out.
Shine a big picture of a barbell and a head hanging off it, and it's like.
And I've got a red telephone, old school Batman.
I like it. So thank you very much for joining us today, lad.
It's been a pleasure.
Really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're still working, you're still super busy, so I really do appreciate it. Fine. Obviously, we'd like to thank all NHS staff and all key workers that are still working at these times, because it is super important that everyone's keeping the world ticking over, even though we're currently making podcasts and not actually being in the gym.
We're spinning the world.
Yeah, we're keeping the world going, keeping people entertained, which is important. Obviously, a show that has been mentioned multiple times by Daz is the show with Matt Pilling, which I think is episode 13. If you enjoyed today's show with Daz, then that is one for you to go and check out. I think they're very much in the same vein and speaking the same messages. So please jump on that one if you enjoyed this one. Obviously, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, review, comment. That's how we get the word out there. 5-star review on iTunes would be fantastic, because that will push up our ratings, and it helps us spread the word and speak to more people. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of AgogeTV, and thank you very much for Daz and Josh. Cheers, guys. Peace.